Welcome back, YouTube friends. Today we're going to be replacing the pallets on this head racket with these. Before you get started, you're going to need a couple of things. First, you'll need a racket. You'll need replacement pallets, and we've got ones from our friends up in RPNY in 3.5 size. That's right, 3.5 in Wilson shape, and a replacement butt cap if you're going to replace that. Next, you'll need a kitchen knife. This one's about a 5-inch blade. It's from the kitchen, pretty dull. The tip has been snapped off. You'll need a heat gun. Some folks have mentioned about using hair dryers. Personally, I don't think they get hot enough. Next, you'll need some double-sided tape. This is 3M double-sided tape. I forget what number this is. I can find out for you and put it in the description below. But this is super sticky, super thin, and it makes the pallet adhere to the hairpin pretty good. And finally, you'll need a pneumatic stapler, but we'll get to that later in the video, and I'll point out what it is I use exactly. So the first thing you're going to want to do is get this butt cap off, and to do that you're going to have to remove the staples holding it in. I think on this one they've got 5 staples, and unfortunately you can't save the butt cap all the time. Sometimes you will end up ruining it a little bit. In this case, it's not going to bother me since I plan on using a different one anyway, but just be mindful of that. There we go. Butt cap is off. What I'm going to do is just take an Xacto knife, and along the seams of the pallet you'll find the original tape. Just cut this in half. Get that tape cut along the seams of the pallet so that we have no issues later on both sides. And we're ready for the next step. And that next step is the heat gun. I have here a commercial grade heat gun, not a hair dryer. This gets pretty hot. I've found that hair dryers don't get hot enough. I've read places where you can use hot water, and some folks have used that to some success. I think water is a bit messy. This is a little bit more effective in my opinion. So let's get to it. But what you want to do is aim the heat gun right down the hairpin in order to get some of a gap between the hairpin and the pallets and start melting some of that tape. Alright, so I've hit the pallet with the heat gun for about a... Jesus. Yeah, sorry about that. I guess the smoke alarm didn't like that. Hit the pallet with a heat gun for about a minute. I'm going to heat the blade a little bit too of this kitchen knife for a couple of seconds just to get it warm. Not too hot, just in case it happens to touch skin. But now I'm going to insert this gently in between the pallet and the handle. And it should go in relatively smoothly, pretty simply. Don't force it. You're going to want to wiggle it to side, not lengthwise, but laterally. And just put it in as far as it will go. Don't force it again. You can hear the tape. And the pallet should begin to separate little by little. If you have any intention of saving the pallet afterwards, obviously you want to be a bit careful here. But oh, it's cracked a little bit. May have to hit it with the heat gun again. But let's get this side off first. There you have it. One pallet removed. This is a size 3 TK8 pallet shape on the 2-generation-old Prestige S that I'm taking the pallets off of. This for me is going in the trash. Some of the original tape that held the pallets on, you can see that. Here's the hairpin. And let's get the other side off now. And the other side's free. So at this point, before you do any more work, you want to just inspect the hairpin for cracks. This model code, for those of you who are interested, I don't know if you can see that, but that's a TGK 291.2. So we're going to be replacing today onto our racket these pallets from our friends over at RPNY. These are 3.5 size, so that's in between an L3 and an L4 in a Wilson square shape. I'm not a big fan of the rectangular shape of the head rackets. I could have used the head speed pallets, but these I think are a little bit better. They're also a bit lighter if I remember. But you'll also notice out of the box the RPNY pallets are longer than the head ones. So that's something to keep note of. Before I discard my head pallets, I will mark the length off. And we'll repeat for the other one. You know, on second thought, I think we're going to cut these pallets to length first now before we proceed. So let's go ahead and do that. All right, so we've got our pallets cut to length now. These don't have to be perfectly flush at the end, as long as they're relatively straight. It'll be covered by the butt cap anyway. It was using an Xacto knife to just cut that extra excess off. I could make this an extra length racket by 1/4 inch or so without too much of an issue, but I'm choosing to keep the racket at a standard 27-inch length. All right, let's get installing. Today's install is brought to us by Fresca. For this next part, you'll need some double-sided tape. Again, I'll put the description to this in the box below. This is just super thin double-sided tape from 3M. I'm going to put probably 3 pieces down the length of the hairpin. Some folks like to use the old one if they can salvage it. I don't mind doing that, but I think in this case, with a just as good alternative in this tape, I find putting some new stuff on just gives me some peace of mind. So now we'll just press fit on our pallets the right way, of course, with the tapered side facing the hoop. We want to make sure, of course, that the end of our pallet ends at the end of the racquet. Which we have here. Squeeze. And that is on there pretty securely. The fit's pretty good. There's a butt end view. And as you may notice, this is a pretty rectangular hairpin. And for the most part, the rackets that, or the manufacturers that utilize this pallet system have this general shape. I know Head has this. I believe Technofiber also utilizes the same system in the same shape. The pallets are swappable. I don't know if Dane is. I haven't replaced one of those. And I know Volkel also uses a pallet system, but their hairpins are a different shape and dimension, I believe. And you cannot put any pallets on there besides Volkel pallets. So just something to keep in mind. The next thing we're going to do is install the new butt cap, which is the one from RPNY that came with the kit. We'll just press that on there, like so. Get it on nice and snug. And a lot of you are wondering probably how I'm going to secure this, and that was something I mentioned early in the video. So let's go take a walk. And all right, welcome to my garage. It's freezing in here. It's the middle of February and it's about 35 degrees outside. But here in the garage, we've got the air compressor charged up. And we've got the air gun, the pneumatic stapler. This is a Porter cable. This is a Porter cable model NS150C. And we'll be using Porter cable brand crown staples, 18 gauge, 1 inch long. I don't know how wide these are, but the part number is PNS 18100. So what we want to do is basically staple in on 4 or 5 of these bevels. And the goal is to get these staples to pierce into the butt cap, the pallet, and the hairpin to secure it to the racket securely. So that was utter failure. The staples actually ended up shattering the butt cap. So we're going to reuse our old Head butt cap. That should be serviceable in this case because the RPNY shattered, probably because it's so freaking cold in here. We'll just slide that on, make sure it's all the way on. And restaple. And that, friends, is a secured butt cap that will not be coming off anytime soon. Back to the lab. All right, so now that we have our butt cap reattached to the racket rather securely, I only used 4 staples this time. We're gonna wrap it up with the grip and that'll be it. And there we have it. We've got a newly installed RPNY 3.5 Wilson shaped pallet on a head racket, albeit with a head butt cap for the time being, but that's okay. So I hope you guys got something from that and you feel at least a little bit more confident about putting new pallets on a head racket. If you have any questions or comments, leave it down below. Otherwise, we'll see you next time in the lab.